Welcome, I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria takes over Nigeria's largest airline, Arik, appoints chief executive and receivership to run the affairs of the airline. Management of Arik vows to challenge the takeover in court, even as it promises that its operations will not be disrupted. Labour unions hold protests in Lagos and Abuja to demand more government action on the current economic crisis in the country. And punches rent the air as radical MPs try to disrupt the State of Nation address by South African President Jacob Zuma.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria successfully raises $1 billion in its oversubscribed Eurobond issue. On sports news tonight, Europe's football governing body UEFA demands 16 slots at the expanded 2026 FIFA World Cup.
I am Maokwe Ogun, and from Abuja, the Nigerian Bar Association shortlists 9 applicants for appointment as Supreme Court justices.
The Assets Management Corporation of Nigeria says it's taken over the operations of Nigeria's largest domestic carrier, Arik Air. AMCON spokesperson Mr. Jude Ngozo, who confirmed the development to journalists today in Lagos, said the airline would now be managed by Mr. Roy Ilebodu, an aviation expert, under the receivership of Mr. Oluseye Okwasonya. He explained that the government decided to intervene because Arik Air is experiencing a heavy debt burden that threatens to ground its operations. Mr. Ngozo adds that the move underscores the government's decision to instill sanity in the nation's aviation sector. In a statement, the Minister of State for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, was optimistic about the new development and pledged that his ministry would support the new management of the airline. And while that announcement was made, the management of Arik Air has said it'll challenge the takeover of the airline by AMCON. The Senior Vice President Operations at Arik Air, Captain Ado Sanusi, made this comment at a news briefing with the newly appointed receiver manager, Mr. Oluseye Okwasonya, and the airline's technical consultant. Captain Sanusi said the management of Arik Air had been served with a valid court order empowering AMCON to take over the affairs of the airline, to which it has complied, so that Arik Air would continue to run without any disruption. Lack of long-term funding at sustainable interest rates and unfavorable monetary policy environments are part of the challenges airline operators say they face running the business here in Nigeria. With the takeover of Arik Air by AMCON owing to indebtedness, our background reports examine some of these challenges that often send airlines out of business. Our aviation correspondent Bukola Joe Oketumbi reports.
In 2015, the aviation industry contributed about 185 billion naira. That's just about 0.4% to Nigeria's overall GDP, and supported 254,500 jobs. That's from a Philips Consulting survey in that year. While experts believe the industry is capable of doing more, domestic airline operators have cited lack of long-term funding at sustainable interest rates and unfavorable fiscal and monetary policy environment as major challenges to their survival.
All over the world, airlines are made to access, low interest rate loans. Nigeria is the other way around. All my loans are borrowed and they're going on 22.5.
Inconsistent government policies, high taxation and levies from the government, and the ever-soaring price of aviation fuel also adds to the burden.
There's no way we will be able to get out of this situation because we don't produce locally. We need to import, and if you are importing, you need to get the forex. So if the forex is not available, what do we do?
NAMA will still charge you for the services for flying navigational charges. FAN will still charge you in your own country landing, parking, airport taxes. So there are a lot of double charges.
While indigenous carriers have limited capacity and operate in a business with very low profit margins, another expert believes that airlines do not have proper business plans. In the face of the AMCON takeover of Arik Air and an earlier takeover of Aero, which led to its shutdown in September 2016 before returning to flight operations late last year, many industry stakeholders say they will be watching to see how AMCON will return Arik to the path of recovery. Bukola Joe Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
Hundreds of unionists and members of civil society groups today trooped out in protest against what they call hardship being experienced by Nigerians across the country. In Lagos, the protesters marched through the streets to the government house and finally the House of Assembly in Alausa to make their demands known. This would be the second protest against the government in 1 week.
It all starts here at the Lagos State Secretariat of the Nigerian Labour Congress, where leaders and members of labor unions, trade unions, civil societies and students converge in the early hours of the day for a protest demanding good governance and viable policies. The crowd grows bigger as the protest hits major streets and roads. Popular musician Charles Oputa, also known as Charlie Boy, joins in the demonstration at some point. Behind the crowd is a stretch of traffic congestion. The people are determined despite the long hours of work.
We are not tired. We are never and we can never get tired.
From Yaba through Ikorodu Road and Ikeja, the march culminated at the Lagos House after over 4 hours of work. Renowned lawyer Femi Falana also joins them.
You can see the hardship is spreading daily, and there is no economic plan to salvage it. And that is why you can see the anger is escalating on daily basis, and we cannot do anything but to speak for the people. Enough is enough. Enough of poverty is enough. Enough of corruption is enough. Enough of non-payment of salaries and wages. Enough of non-payment of pension.
The protesters are informed that the governor is not available to meet with them, but one of the commissioners,
His Excellency Mr. Akinwumi Ambode, is not on ground as we speak. We have heard all the complaints, and the governor, as the speaker has rightly suggested, is a people's governor. He's a man of the people. He will deliver the messages to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in Abuja.
It is a warning protest according to the leaders of the unions. The Nigerian Labour Congress vows to mobilize its members for another mass protest to be held across the country if the harsh economic situation remains unchanged.
Nigeria's capital city also witnessed another round of protests today as members of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, as well as other civil society organizations, took to the streets of Abuja. They marched through the streets with placards demanding accountability from the government officials as they made their way to the presidential villa.
Members of the workers' union and civil society organizations converge on the Unity Fountain in Abuja, the take-off point for a protest rally to demand accountability from the government. The messages on the placards say it all. The protesters decry the lack of basic infrastructure and are demanding good governance from the political class. Going further, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress states how workers have been affected by the lack of these amenities.
We have been at the receiving end, and at the heart of this challenge is near absence of good governance, accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. Any system system that does not have those ingredients of good governance in place, then certainly the first group of people that will suffer is the working class.
In his address, the president of the Trade Union Congress decries corruption in government and economic recession.
We have day in, day out increase in inflation. We have day in, day out recession coming in. And this recession is coming in because of what? One, the stolen wealth that have not been redistributed to Nigerians.
The protesters now file into the streets, chanting solidarity songs as they head toward the presidential villa. At the 3 AMCON zone leading into the presidential villa, the protesters are stopped by armed policemen. Here, other leaders address their members on the effects of corruption on several sectors of the economy.
We are tired of corruption in this country. It is because of corruption. That's why even our president cannot stay here to attend medical services.
After this, some leaders of the various protesting groups are then selected and driven into the presidential villa to meet with the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
And indeed, that meeting did happen, as the union leaders did not mince words when they finally met with the vice president. Our State House correspondent Chukwuma Onekose reports.
Having experienced a roadblock by security personnel at the 3 AMCON zone, Labour selected some members of their leadership to head to the seat of government in the presidential villa to register their protest. Among their 18-point demand to the acting president, leaders of the labor union say issues of governance and systemic corruption facing the nation are a source of worry to them.
One, public officers being made to declare their assets before assuming office, and where they don't do this, it should be forfeited, and many other issues that we think will actually support the issue of good governance. We also want the fight against corruption actually to go down the ladder because we still see that in states and local government where workers are being owed salaries and pensions, and yet a lot of resources are being diverted.
The vice president, in what looks like a lecturer labor union brainstorming session, takes them through what governance is all about. He says this administration is committed towards empowering Nigerians irrespective of their status.
You can imagine a situation where when there was resources, salaries were not paid. All of these things we're talking about were not made. But at the leanest time in the history of this country, we have made those payments, ensured that salaries of workers, even in the states, are paid, ensured that those refunds are tied to payment of salaries at a time of the leanest purse that the federal government has had in very many years. One of the most important things about the interventions is that we know that we have to address the questions of unemployment. If you don't address the questions of unemployment, we can't even begin to say that people will have a decent or reasonable lifestyle.
He also tells them that a successful fight against corruption will not be feasible without the support of Nigerians.
The major problem that this country has suffered so far is the looting of its resources. That's a major problem. Government needs the TUC, the NLC, the working classes, the civil society to speak up against corruption. We need them to speak up. Because if you look at what is going on, the campaigns that are going on, people are carrying on as if, well, you know, I mean, the kinds of comments you get sometimes, it's a witch hunt. Only these people are being punished. Only that is being punished. Hey, if the evidence points to you, you should not have the excuse that you are being witch hunted.
The government is facing mass protest in quick succession within a week. Concerned Nigerians say they look forward to the day when those they voted into power will fulfill their promises, for that is the only way to avoid the hues and cries now prevalent in the land. Chukwuma Onekuse, Channels Television News.